It might seem strange that a decade-old game like GTA 5 is getting an updated PC system requirements chart, but it makes sense in the context of the massive update that is coming on March 4th for free to all PC users. This is bringing huge feature set updates, including tons of ray tracing effects, DLSS, FSR, direct storage, and more, as well as gameplay updates to bring it more in line with what consoles have to offer. Now, the PC specs themselves don't look crazy, but in the context of a decade-old game that ran on, like, frankly, ancient hardware and ran well on that ancient hardware, this could scare some people into worrying that their system can no longer run. I mean, let me put that in some context. I pulled up an old article of GTA 5 PC specs, and we're talking about, like, Intel Core 2 quads from ages ago. We're talking about like an NVIDIA 9800 GT 1GB GPU for minimum specs. I mean, we're talking very old hardware here. Whereas the new system specs, even for the minimums, like require a 105 gigabytes of space on an SSD. Old PCs that came out with GTA 5 very much likely may not have had an SSD. You need a DirectX 10 compatible GPU. I mean, that's not asking for a ton, but I can tell you that other GPUs that aren't DirectX 10 compatible aren't going to be running the game anymore, at least on the upgraded version. And that's what I absolutely love about this. Before we read any further on these specs, I would like to highlight the fact that they are doing this right. While they are offering the upgraded version of the game, they are not forcing you into the upgraded version of the game. This is on the developer page post about this. They say support for the previous version of GTA 5 will continue, allowing anyone whose hardware does not currently meet the minimum requirements of the new upgrade to keep playing. This also ensures that support for 5M will continue uninterrupted while we work to extend support for it on the upgraded version. Now, we should keep reading, though, because this begs the question, if there's going to be two different versions of the game, what happens if I'm playing online with people who are on the older version of the game, but I want to use the upgraded version of the game? And the answer to that is you can't do that. You have to both be in the same version. Here's the direct quote. Please note that to maintain this support, the original version of GTA Online on PC will be a separate instance, and players who remain on that version will not be able to play in sessions together with those on the upgraded version. PC players who want to play with each other will need to ensure they're playing the same version of the game. Both versions will be available to everyone who upgrades, and first-time purchasers will get access to both versions as well. So I really think, despite the kind of caveat that you can't play, they will be separate instances, I think this is great, because if they had updated the game to lock out people who otherwise owned the game and could play it just fine, that would be awful if you suddenly lost access to the game. But it's also nice to give this huge feature set upgrade. But again, the downside of the split instances is going to be a bit of a annoying thing for some people. Also, I can barely breathe right now. My cat just... That must have been the stinkiest crap my cat has ever taken, because the litter box is like super far away from me right now and I'm struggling to breathe. We'll try to get through this video and then I'm gonna go see if my cat's okay, guys. Anyway, that's totally unnecessary side note. Let's move along here. So let's talk about what the system requirements are, and then let's go into more depth on what are the technical upgrades that are requiring this. Now, I'm also going to mention that I find this fairly useless, to be honest, because it gives minimum and recommended, but it doesn't tell us what settings it's using for these. It doesn't tell us what frame rates it's going to hit. It doesn't tell us really much of anything at all, but it looks like minimum will be what you need to at least get into the game. So like I said, an SSD will now be required for the upgraded version of the game and a DX10 compatible GPU. For GPUs, they're specifically listing a GTX 1630 or an RX 6400. These are not super powerful graphics cards by modern standards, and they are specifying at least 4 gigabytes of VRAM on that. Keep in mind, though, that again, the old version of the game could run on like 1 gigabyte graphics cards like an NVIDIA 900 GT or an AMD HD 4870 1 gigabyte. So do keep that in mind, that this is a big upgrade from the minimum, what the minimums used to be. Specifying 8 gigabytes of system memory and processors of at least a Core i7 4770 or an AMD FX 9590. Again, these are very old CPUs, but again, in the context of the previous minimum requirements, it is a big upgrade. But again, you can keep playing the old version of the game. Now, the recommended system specs are going up to an i5-9600K or Ryzen 5 3600 for the CPU. That puts it roughly in line with like PS5-ish level CPU performance. They're also specifying 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's not VRAM, that's system memory. And for the GPU, they're specifying at least 8 gigabytes of VRAM, RTX 3060 or 6600 XT. Again, this is putting it somewhere in the ballpark of like a PS5-ish type GPU. Not exactly, but that kind of ballpark. They're suggesting an SSD that has direct storage compatibility. They're also specifying some sound guard stuff and whatnot, because it looks like they're adding Dolby Atmos support. So if you want the Dolby Atmos support, you need support for that in your hardware. Anyway, so there's all of that. Now, again, it doesn't tell us the resolution frame rate this is actually running at, in which case I find this only mildly interesting and not particularly useful. That being said, what are actually the technical enhancements that we are getting from this? They're saying that ray tracing features only available on PC, such as ambient occlusion and global illumination, plus ray traced shadows and reflections that first debuted on consoles. Now, if you haven't kept up to date with this, 2 years ago, like this is a Digital Foundry video testing out the console version of GTA 5, 2 years ago got a ray traced reflections update. That update didn't come to the PC version of the game, which felt a little awkward since generally PCs are more capable, at least on high-end ones, so that was a bit weird. And a year before that, there was an RT Sun Shadows implementation on consoles. So consoles have had RT shadows and reflections for years now, and the PC version hasn't got that update. But now the PC version is getting those updates and is also getting ray traced ambient occlusion and global illumination, which was not available on console and, as far as I can tell, is not being added to the console version. So PC is finally now not just matching what console versions can do technically, but pushing beyond it. Also getting support for AMD FSR1 and FSR3 and DLSS 3. So hey, those RT effects might be demanding. You might want to use upscaling to enable support for them. So there you go. Also nice to get faster loading times using an SSD and direct storage. If you have compatible hardware for that. They're also mentioning enhanced support for higher resolutions, higher aspect ratios, and higher frame rates. They're not mentioning exactly what that means, but it sounds like a good thing. DualSense controller support with adaptive triggers, which is nice, and enhanced audio with support for Dolby Atmos and improved fidelity of speech, cinematics, and music. Now, I want to be clear that there's also a bunch of gameplay updates happening, more like game features rather than technical features. My channel focuses more on PC hardware though, so I'm not gonna go into huge depth on that. Here's kind of the highlights. They're mentioning that the PC is getting a free upgrade with sought-after features previously only available on the PS5 and Xbox Series XS versions of GTA Online, including all the latest vehicle and performance upgrades available at How's Special Works, animal encounters, and access to purchase a GTA Plus membership, along with improved graphics options, faster loading times, and more. So there's all that. There are some screenshots featuring the How's Special Works stuff. Presumably these screenshots might include the technical updates as well. They certainly look nice. This is the animal encounters they're talking about here, nicer animals. Anyway, if you want more details on all of those more actual gameplay bits, you could try to read real quickly as I scroll down, or actually I'll just link my sources in the video description. I will also link the Digital Foundry video that was looking at the ray tracing effects in the console versions of the game, because while that's not the PC version being tested, it might give you some idea of what you're gonna see. I am now gonna figure out what the heck is going on with my cat. I hope all of you have an excellent day.